Hello and welcome to another guide video on the Bearfoot Miniatures channel. Today we're going to be going over the Razing of Westerland, why you should like this book regardless of whether you're not a Chaos player, what I think could be improved about this book. It's not perfect, nothing is, and what we think of all the units. So stick around for that. So the first thing to say is Games Workshop sent me this book as a review copy. I only got it a couple of days ago, which is a couple of days before the release date of the video. Now, that is why I've not done a game like I usually do for the release of this. I didn't have anything in time. I didn't even know it was coming out. It appears like there's been just a mix up and I've been forgotten with that. So, but that is why I've not done a game. So I'm really sorry for that, because I do like doing games on these days as opposed to running through the book like you might have seen elsewhere. Now, overall, I think actually the book is really good. I think it sets a good tone for the old world. Now, what I think the old world is a really good narrative story framework, which is why, obviously, if you're on this channel, I play mainly narrative games, or exclusively narrative games. Now, what I think this is really good for, this book, is enhancing those narrative games. It's got a campaign system. They brought back the Path to Glory system back from days of yore and updated it to be applicable to all factions, not just Chaos players. I think it sets a good tone. It's got generic items for all armies, not just Chaos players, so that's brilliant. And it includes various things for Chaos that enhance Marauders. I love that. Obviously it comes out with new models and stuff, enhancing Marauders. Now, one thing to note is that I don't think Chaos as an army needed any improvement. Now, we're still seeing them, other outside of like balloon spam, be really, really successful on the table. So, do I think Chaos needed that boost, or a boost? No. And we'll be going through the bits later on in the book, like to break down exactly what I mean by that. Because maybe Marauders did need a boost, particularly for the type of army I like to play. But we're going to go through the campaign first, then the Marauder stuff, then a touching on the magic items at the end. So that'll be timestamped below if you want to get to a specific section. But let's jump into the campaign system and the Battle March scenarios. So the campaign system, the Path to Glory, is something that you will be familiar with in format if you've played any other Games Workshop campaign systems. It recommends a 2 to 6 week campaign duration. Now, I definitely agree with that at the upper limits, unless you have a real hardcore of a group that can maintain those longer campaigns. But if you've not run a campaign before, especially, 6 weeks is a good period to run a campaign over. Campaigns very often peter out, and the shorter campaign period that you see in this book and Necromunda, things like that, it allows enthusiasm to stay ramped up for the campaign, whilst also being long enough to touch on getting improvements. It combats one of the true dropout causes of campaigns, and that is the main bane of campaigns. However they set up, the main bane of campaigns is the trailing off of enthusiasm. People that fall behind can't be arsed playing. We find, like, everyone finds a lot from feedback I've got on previous videos talking about campaign systems. So yeah, 6 weeks allows you to get a campaign done in its entirety, over with. Now, another way that you could do it is 6 games over 2 days. My own group, we tend to do single days where we play multiple games, and each game ends up being a round of the campaign, or a cycle if you're going to put it in Necromunda turns, or a week if you think of things in weeks. Yeah, we like to do it over 2 days. So these are all manipulatable in their campaign rules for you basically to be able to do that regardless of how it's been termed in this book. Now, that's quite simple to do because the campaign system is very basic. You're basically going to be getting campaign points for a win, loss, and draw, and however that stacks up at the end of the 6 cycles, you're going to then win or lose. There's also suggested best painted or best army, like thematic wise, as voted by participants for another reward for the campaign. I definitely suggest if you're going to do fixed win conditions, I definitely do a like best player, coolest dude style vote. And we, at our events, me and Phil, tend to have these as the most important one of the lot. Regardless of how many victories someone's got, they know they've won the campaign anyway. So they're going to be going for that anyway. Everyone's fluff of their army is they're at least moderately successful. No one plans their army, or some people do. Not everyone plans their army and goes, my fluff for my army is my guy loses every time. So yeah, everyone's going to be trying for the win anyway. So having like best player, coolest player, best sport as the premium one encourages good conduct throughout the campaign. So that's one thing that I would add to this campaign, definitely. So you build up a slow growth starting at 500 points, building to 2,000, 2,500 points. Obviously, that's hard to do week by week. So despite how they've suggested it being a 6-week campaign, unless someone can churn out a unit every week, which some people can, you need them pre-prepared anyway. So having a single day campaign where you add units still works or is still as achievable for a lot of people. A lot of people find having a singular date that they're forced to do something by is a great motivator, be that a single unit or like even myself personally, I find it a real good motivator to just crack out an entire army and then not have to worry about time scales over a period of time. So that is the grit of the campaign done. What is the real interesting bit of the campaign? Because as you might have been able to tell, it's very basic. I'm not super impressed with that. Now, what I really like about this campaign is the veteran abilities gained by your units across the campaign. So basically, both your units as well as commanders are going to gain experience and abilities across the campaign. Now, this is done in actually quite a nice system where you gain XP if you survive a game without being reduced to less than 50% of your starting strength on a unit. You get +1 XP for a trophy of war, such as a banner, or enemy unit you personally destroy with that unit at the end of the game. Then you can spend any XP you've accrued from that game or previous games and roll on the table. So you can roll every game if you like. You roll a d6 on a 2 to 5 result. You don't learn anything, but you don't reduce XP. You don't forgo all of your XP. On a 6 to 8, you get grizzled veterans. So that's +1 leadership to a maximum of 10. If the units is already 10, you treat the roll as a 2 to 6, which is obviously a 2 to 5. You don't learn anything. So you've had to put some XP in there. If you put 1 XP in there and roll a 5, you get grizzled veterans. And then they get better as you spent more XP. So you're incentivized to save XP across the campaign so you can get to the better ones at the end. So they go from experienced warriors, reroll 1s to hit. If the unit and that's once per game. If you gain it a second time, you get a second reroll across the game. Weapons masters, +1 weapon skill or ballistic skill. That's an 11-12. So realistically, unless you have a tear of a game, it'll take you a couple of games to get up to this level even with a good roll. Fighting formation, improve the rank bonus of the unit, or spoils of war, the unit permanently improves its armor piercing characteristic by 1 to a maximum of 5. So there's some really tasty things at the end of that list. Now, for commanders, we have a very similar system. So you get 1 XP for surviving the game, 1 XP per enemy character slain, per trophy of war captured or enemy unit destroyed during the game by the character or unit they've joined. So if your unit captures a trophy of war, you get an XP. In addition, an army's general earns 1 XP if the army won the game, and the table is a d6 roll, 2 to 6. So it's maybe meaning it's supposed to be 1 to 5, like the previous one of Reluctant Warriors on the unit abilities table was, but because it doesn't have the qualification of the 1 down of Grizzled Veterans, it will have to be a 2 to 6. So you've got 2 to 6, don't learn anything, but you don't reduce to 0 XP. 7 to 11, Grizzled Veteran, the character permanently improves their leadership by 1. 12 to 14, Weapons Master, you permanently improve either weapon skill or ballistic skill by 1, which can get tasty when you get to some Lord levels, because you're much more likely to get into that double +1 category, so that enemies are hitting you on a 5. And then 15 plus, improve armor characteristic by 1. So to a maximum of 5 again. And that's really good. It means that if you've got a great weapon, you've chosen to spend magical item allowance elsewhere, you can still get into this absolute beast in combat by improving your armor piercing characteristic over a game. Now, what this also has, this system, is battlefield losses and death. So both your units and your characters, if they die, if they get wiped out, if they've reduced below 25% of their unit strength or flee, you've got to roll a d6 on the table at the end of the game. On a 1 to 3 for both of them, the character or unit is gone, scattered to the winds. They lose all the XP and the veteran abilities. On 4 for the units, terrible losses, you lose a veteran ability chosen by the player. On a 5, you're mauled. Despite having received a mauling from the foe, they recover fast and are fine. And on a 6, you get lessons learned, an additional 1 XP. For characters, you get 1 to 3 is dead, 4 to 5 is badly wounded. They survive and lose 1 veteran ability, and a 6, they gain insight but no XP for a character. Now, I really like them for a 6-week campaign. It does mean that you have to preserve your characters, because it's going to be quite hard to keep them alive if they keep dying, because you've got a 50% chance of dying each time. The reason I like that is because, having played Necromunda, where you need to roll a 6 to get a critical injury on your 10's characteristic, basically, for anyone that's not played Necromunda, you roll a d66 table, which is 2 d6s, 1 which is the 10's and 1 which is the units. So Necromunda, you've got to roll a 6 on the 10's dice for someone to have killed you, and then on the units dice, a 1 to 5 means that you can be taken to the dock and saved anyway. So it's only a 66 that kills a character. Now, in a game where it's a violent combat where you guys are getting chopped up, shot, thing like Necromunda, even you're getting meltagunned to the face, to have such a low frequency of death feels really wrong. And it's similar in the old world, where you guys are literally getting chopped up. In a short campaign, death can be really annoying. If you can get attached to your character and be like, oh fuck, I've just lost my character. But without that chance of death, it's sort of like there's not as big an upside. You won't be able to truly take revenge on your opponent's characters. You won't develop a story of surviving against the odds as much, because if there's just no chance of death, if there's no downside, upsides are mitigated much more in campaigns, is my opinion. And if you get bonked on the head and removed from a campaign, you could just, narrative wise, if you're very attached to the character, just have blasted off again and they're sitting it out with massive injuries. You don't have to be tied to just because it says dead. It can be, if you really feel strongly about it, they just need to recover from their wounds. They can, like in, say, Skyrim or something, wake up somewhere having been robbed. You even roll on the Mordheim tables and they could have been sold to the pits, something like that. It's all of this, especially in a campaign system, is malleable to what you want to get from a campaign system. So I really like these veteran abilities, the losses, how it all works. It's very simple. It's easy to skill up things. They're quite good. They're valuable skills. So I'd like to transplant them onto other campaigns. I will be doing. I'd already written a campaign system for the old world in the Border Princes, and actually I think doing something like this is something that I'll transplant onto that campaign, because this is just much more concise, and with it being official, it'll be much easier to just codify within our own game system, and we'll change whatever we don't like, and I'd encourage you to do the same. So that is the campaign system. Let us get into the battle march scenario. For the battle march scenarios, these are themed around the war in the Shadowlands. So that's where Friedal the Chainmaker has taken her army south to conquer the Empire and raise Westerland. Now, these are historical refights, but there's no reason why you have to stick to doing them as a historical refight. They've got points for the army, so you just use that, obviously, to make your own army and make it fit. Now, one thing that I really like about this first scenario, you've got split deployment zones. The game length and victory is fairly similar, but codified into the rules is the Warriors' Duel at the start of the game. So just like Wolves of the Sea, regardless of whether either player is playing with Wolves of the Sea, you get to start with a challenge to see who goes first. It's something that I said at the time of Wolves of the Sea coming out, that it's a very chaosy rule, but there's no reason why it couldn't be applied to Bretonians, Empire, champions from, say, Orcs fighting the Empire. All of the armies have a martial culture to them. So having Warriors' Duel decide who goes first, I really like, and it's a real good narrative storytelling element for the game. Now, it limits you to wound characteristic 1 models and being unit champions. I do think that's good, because if you lose your leader before the game even begins, it's a massive blow. It's a massive blow. You can fight, obviously, like with everything, change what you want to change. From a game balance standpoint, having done it with characters before and then been like, oh, I guess me or my opponent is down a really key character, and even the storytelling element for the game, it does take away from the game when you get into it, even if there's been that element of risk before the game. So really like that first one. It's simple. It introduces that Warriors' Duel, and otherwise it's just sort of a normal game, but I like the inclusion of the Warriors' Duel. The next one, Looting and Pillaging, it is what it says on the tin, but it's looting and pillaging a baggage train. Now, if you followed the channel for a while, you might know that me and Phil actually ran a baggage train trip to Cathay. And this was before Cathay came out. We ran events, 2 events, one for Fantasy VI, one for the Old World, based on Border Towns Burning, which was a supplement to Mordheim. It's worth a Google if you haven't. If I remember, I'll drop a link in the description. But it's a really good campaign. It could form the framework of Path to Glory, even. And that was, anyway, off the aside, that was taking a baggage train to Cathay. Now, this is a really good scenario for representing that. Essentially, the baggage train moves about if it's within 6 of a unit with unit strength of 5 or more. So it's sort of like Capture the Flag, where it's got to be protected. I really like it for its narrative elements to it. I like that it's in a battle march scenario where you get these skirmishes around baggage trains, where you get hard, fast strikes into logistical trains. It gives a worthwhile amount of victory points. Like, I find in the battle march scenario, sometimes they can tip the balance by you capturing objectives for a long time, but being only 10 victory points for a standard battle march scenario per objective is really limiting, I find. Whereas 100 victory points if the defender controls the baggage train, or 15 victory points per loot point the attacking player captures throughout the game. It's just really nice, and another successful battle match scenario, I think. The final scenario, Hollowed Ground, basically gives us a diagonal deployment map where in the centre of the table there is a landmark that if you control, your unit gains +1 combat res in a combat that they're fighting, and victory is determined by controlling the landmark for 100 victory points. So again, a significant amount of victory points in these 500 point scenarios. And for each table quarter that you control, you win a bonus of 50 victory points. I like how that interplays with the diagonal deployment. You start really close, 3 inches away from a third table quarter. So you've immediately got pressure into those quarters to start projecting table control, and your opponent and you yourself from their control are forced to deal with that straight away. So it's a really nice scenario. I'm really liking these battle march scenarios at the moment. It's a fast-paced game. It suits narrative scenarios, I find, because having these small actions preserves the amount of interesting decisions that you get across the game. I find when you get bigger armies, a lot of the points going into scaling up units. So even if you have an army of 2,000 points, you might only have half again as many units. Maybe you do have an army that's more MSU, that has a lot more like smaller multiple units, obviously across the board. But I find like sort of having 6 that we found in battle match scenarios, 6 units, 6 interesting decisions that are going to decide the outcome of the game per turn, is a real nice point. So if you've not tried battle march yet, give them a go. It's well worthwhile, and new scenarios in this book are a big thumbs up from me. The next section, we have Chaos Marauders and Marauder Horsemen having an update. They basically both dropped the equivalent of a point. They've stayed the same, but they've gained light armor and shields respectively for Marauders and Chaos Marauder Horsemen. So they upgrades worth a point to each of them. It's it's good. Marauders probably were lacking a bit, I find. Having played a Marauder army quite a bit, you always want to be taking the beasts of the units. You skewed towards the fantastical elements of chaos rather than the followers of chaos with how the rules work. So I like the fact that Marauders specifically have been given a boost. Other changes is that your models can belong to a chaos cult rather than gaining different marks of chaos. You still have Chaos Undivided, so you still have that reroll to Fear, Panics, Terrors, but instead of having marks that give you, say, Frenzy, you now get cults. And what cults do, I'm on the wrong page actually, is one of these effects. So the Cult of the Blooded Hound is +1 weapon skill. The Cult of the Slithering Serpent is poisoned. Carrion Crow is +1 toughness. And Cult of the Fell Raptor is a 6-up ward. I really don't like 6-up wards for how often they come off. How often they've come off for my Marauder Berserkers. Completely scrapped. I do not like it. It seems to never do anything for me. Poisoned on an entire unit for 1 point a model is incredibly good. It means that you can take Marauder Horsemen. They've lost Skirmish, but you can have 1 per 1,000 taking Skirmish for free. So therefore they can run around with javelins, getting 6s to hit, and be ultra fast skinks. So that is a real good option for Marauder Horsemen. Obviously, Marauders, helpful as well. Blooded Hound, I like, because it means that you're going to be higher weapon skill than a lot of equivalent infantry. You're going to be double +1 peasants, which we've seen in massive blocks, or I've seen in massive blocks recently, as well as other like dogshit infantry. You're also going to be higher weapon skill than elite infantry of some armies, so you'll be hitting them on 3s. That's excellent. Carrion Crow, +1 toughness, always useful. Like I don't think I need to go over why +1 toughness is useful, and for 1 point a model, it is near definitely worth it, especially because with light armor, shield, and hand weapon shield bonus coming to a 4-up, having a toughness 4-up save model, it for your Marauders, really cheap, really or much more survivable. Now, on top of that, each unit of chaos can gain a chaotic trait, or each mortal servant of chaos can gain a chaotic trait. These range from situationally useful to incredibly good. So basically, a quick breakdown of them, of who can take what. Characters, Lords and Sorcerer Lords can take 2 chaotic traits, everyone else can take 1. Chaos Warriors and Chaos Knights take a single chaotic trait. Chosen Chaos Knights can purchase 2. And for the Marauder tribes, Chaos Marauders, Marauder Horsemen, Marauder Tribe Berserkers can all purchase a single trait. Huskarls can take 2. Right, so the more chaotic elements can take more gifts, essentially. Or traits, because gifts are already a thing. So this is in addition to your gifts. And the first one, straight away, an incredibly good one. For 2 points a model on units, or 20 points per model on the characters, unless wearing heavy or full plate armor, improves toughness by 1. So immediate thought is, with the Cult of the Carrion Crow improving toughness by 1, you can have Marauder Chieftains running around at toughness 6, or Chaos Aspiring Champions running around at toughness 6. So it makes much more survivable. For units, can get up to toughness 5 for Marauders. Obviously, Chaos Warriors can't take this because their armor is too heavy. You're going to get more onto the expensive end, being 9 points a model with the Carrion Crow, but then at toughness 5, you've got an incredibly durable unit, even against a lot of armies' lances. And if you're still seeing loads of dragons about, having a dragon and rider wound your unit on 3s, and then you've got a massive static combat res, immediately stands out as something good. Dark Hearts, basically, it's like the -1 leadership part of Terror. So your unit, if they're in combat with an enemy unit and the majority of your unit has Dark Hearts, so you can have a character in there without, the enemy unit takes -1 to their leadership. That, because it's not Terror, stacks with Terror for a -2. So you could have, say, Marauder Huskarls with Fear upgrading to Terror with a banner, and then Dark Hearts for -2 to their leadership. And the way you get fear in that unit is by having a character on demonic mount. So they have the banner, character demonic mount, banner makes that terror, Dark Hearts makes it -2, which is insanely good for the breakthrough on the charge if you win that round of combat. Long Striders, unless in heavy armor or full plate, so that it's a bonus to Marauder Horsemen. Marauder Tribe Huskarls, I think, don't have heavy armor as standard. Gain Vanguard. Now, I'm really surprised they actually put Vanguard into this, because I think we've seen Vanguard a lot as a problem. I mean, it's in a lot of armies, so everyone's having to find strategies to deal with it. I think it can be dealt with, but it is extremely good. And for units at 1 point a model, meaning that a unit of horsemen is going to be like 10 points to get Vanguard, it's incredibly cheap. It does exclude you from taking something else if you're just a normal Marauder horseman, not a Huskarl, but is really, really good. Enhanced reflexes. So you gain +2 to your initiative characteristic if you fight with a hand weapon. There's no stipulation on armor, so you can stack that with Chaos Warriors, ensorcelled weapons, and then get +2 initiative and -1 AP for your hand weapon. You've got Battle Hunger. It's an additional 2-inch maximum charge range on infantry only, and when making a charge or pursuit roll, add D3 to the result. So it's like the Slayer's Whirling Death battle Stumpy Legs battle charge. It's semi-swift stride. Really good. It's a flat points for the unit at 20 points for the unit. Just, again, worth taking. All of these up to now, really, really good. You got Brazen Will, 15 points a unit, 10 points a character, -1 magic resistance. Situationally useful. Magic is obviously much devalued since 1.5. Still, and this makes it harder. So I'm someone that doesn't go for magic resistance. I'm just going to roll better than my opponent. But it's worthwhile if you're obviously in the mindset. Phil would make a good argument for this being worthwhile. It just doesn't float my boat. Prophetic Foresight, it pushes back scouts. 10 points a unit. If you've got 10 points over at the end of your list, put it on a unit that's going to be on a flank just in case, and it pushes ambushes out further. Now, that is the rundown of the cults and marks. What I would say about these not cults, the chaotic traits, is that they're really good. They boost Marauders, which I think is really good, because then hopefully we'll see more Marauders within lists. They boost Chaos Warriors. Hopefully we'll see more of them in lists rather than as many small units of Dragon Ogres as we can. As many chariots. What I don't like is that there aren't really downsides to these chaotic traits. I would have liked to see that chaotic nature being a downside as well as an upside that isn't just points downsides. Having like the two-handed, the give and the take of chaos is really characterful. So seeing it somewhere outside of my lord becoming stupid would have been really nice within this. Say, one that springs to mind, the +1 toughness, maybe that could be -1 initiative at the same time. Maybe Battle Hunger, which is the semi-swift stride, maybe that means your guys are less, I'm going to put one, less leadership, because when it turns against them, they're really hungry for battle. When it turns against them, they lose will quickly. It doesn't need to be massive adjustments. It doesn't need to be long special rules. But I just would have liked to see the two sides of the coin of chaos within this army list. And it's sort of picking at straws, because overall I really like this book, both for chaos, as chaos being my main army. it's a lot of give within this book. As someone that likes narrative play as Chaos, I do really like it, but there's always somewhere to get better, and I think that could be one of them. Right, that is enough of that. Let's get on to the new lore. So the new lore is Lore of the Shadowlands. It can be taken by sorcerers of chaos. Sadly, not beasts of chaos sorcerers, which is a bit of a disappointment, honestly. I would like to be able to see it on, lots of different types of sorcerer. Say, outcast wizards could have benefited from it. Even Wizards of the Empire. I know it's more like a darker lore, but being able to see demonology on lots of things, I don't see why we couldn't see it on other armies, what to have the option. So the signature spell is a 3-inch blast, scattered D3 plus 1, and anyone under the base is strength 4, AP minus 3. It's a 7+ casting value with a range of 15, so it ticks a lot of boxes for me. It's a low casting value, even before adding, obviously, your wizard level. Your average casting it on a 7 on them 2d6. So that's really nice. It's reliable. Strength 4, decent. AP minus 3, incredibly good. So all of it stacks up to quite a nice signature spell to compete with the others out there. We've got Blackened Bolts being another magic missile. His range 18, casting value 8. So again, quite low. Once you are level 1 or 2, you're back down to having to roll a 7. So again, reliably casting. The enemy unit suffers 2d6, strength 3 hits, AP minus 1. Any unit that suffers 1 or more unsaved wounds must take a panic check. So you're forcing a dice roll onto your opponent for panic, which is good, with a low threshold to gain that. Strength 3 isn't the best, but 2d6, AP minus 1 with a low casting value. It's not the summoning, which is 9, which means that you need to be like level 3-4 to reliably cast it. I again like that spell. I don't think it's the best. I do think the summoning is better, but to have a good signature spell and then the chance of also rolling a 1 to get Blackened Bolts is good. Veil of Gloom is an enchantment, casting value 9, range 18. Until this your next start of turn subphase, the target unit gains a 4-up ward against any wounds by a template and a 5-up against any wounds suffered in the shooting phase. So it's helping you get into combat with more combat strength. It's easier to cast on more units because of the range than something like Oakenshield, but it obviously isn't going to help you when you get to combat. Theoretically, hopefully, you're already going to be dominating combat because you're Chaos. So it plays into your weaknesses, or it mitigates your weaknesses rather than buffs your strengths. So it's okay. It's not the best, but it's okay. Vortex of Darkness. It's a magical vortex, casting value 10, range 15. Place a 3-inch blast so that the central hole is within 15 of the caster, blah, blah, blah. Scatters D6 during every start of turn subphase. Any unit that moves through the template or the template moves over suffers 3d6, strength 2 hits, no armor saves allowed. That is really good. The no armor saves allowed bit, obviously, really, really good. You're going to be wounding human and elves on 5-ups and dwarves, chaos, saurus, stuff like that. Toughness 4s on 6s. But when you're rolling them 3d6, averaging 11 hits, getting 2-3 kills that armor say or 2-3-6s against a toughness 4 opponent is going to start chipping down those units, and especially because it's a magical vortex that's remaining in play. Shadowed assailant, obviously, although I suppose it could not be, is an assailant, casting value 8. A single enemy unit the caster is engaged in combat with suffers 3d6 strength 1 hits with no armor or regen permitted. Again, it's low casting value at casting value 8. It's surely been written with that thought to reduce wizard casting, it's surely been written with that in mind. 3d6 strength ones, obviously you're fishing for sixes, but no armor or regens allowed. I really, really like. Getting 3 combat res from a wizard now is really good. If you say had the wizarding hat, you just chanced all the stupidity. It's going to reliably cast, and getting just 3 more wounds against someone with that low casting value is really good, I think, because it stacks that combat res more into your favor to win that combat. Crawling Mists is a conveyance. It's a 6+, 9+. Again, low casting values. Range self. If the spell is cast with a casting value of 6 or more, a single friendly unit within 6 of the caster gains reserve move. If it's casting value 9 or more, every friendly unit within 6 of the caster gains reserve move. The spell lasts until the end of the turn. So this is one that I don't particularly like, because reserve move requires you not to have marched. Because I'm not looking to do much else with that, I suppose it could benefit your own caster, but a lot of the time, Chaos, I'm charging up as fast as possible anyway, and it doesn't really matter whether I'm marching or single moving followed by another single move. To me, reserve move, the biggest usages, I know other people have found lots of usages out there, the biggest usage is blowing a hole in your opponent's lines and then reserve moving through it to get 1 turn up with your light cavalry. Chaos doesn't have the ability to really do that unless you know that you're going to be casting magic missiles. You have got them in here, but it's too many successes on those dice rolls to rely on versus just going for some more magic missiles and not putting my cavalry in a precarious position. Finally, Chains of Darkness is a hex. Enemy units until the start of the next subphase suffers -1 to its movement and leadership. So really good against leadership. You've got in this book the ability to do it in the Chaos traits as well as with this Chains of Darkness, and then that's stacking again with Chaos Warriors with the Fear to Terror banner. So getting to the -3 realm, incredibly good. Just even breaking dwarfs, leadership 10 horde units or warband units, things like that. It really powerful. Casting value 8, and it's got a good range at range 18. What's not to like? And that is the lore of the Shadowlands. So finally, we'll get into the artifacts of the Shadowlands with the magic items. The first one that we're going to get to is magic weapons. Normally, I hate all the magic weapons, so let's see how much I hate these or not. The Crackling Blade, 65 points. Extra D6 attacks with Strength +1, AP -1. It's 65 points. If a 6 is rolled, the wielder of the Crackling Blade immediately loses a single wound. It's got AP1 built in, and it's worth saying that any army can take these. AP -1 built in, Strength +1 built in, averaging an extra 3.5, so 3 to 4 attacks. 25 points in attack or 20 points in attack, plus 5 points for the additional strength AP, is fairly good. You can still squeeze in a Talisman of Protection, or say the White Cloak for Empire, one of the army-specific ward saves. It's good for a Blender Lord. I like it. It's not capped at that, say, like the 2 blades of like 30 points cheapness at 1 attack. Yeah, so it's fairly good. It isn't where I tend to go with my lords. I'm not the biggest magic item buff on a single character person. I like having a lord with a great weapon and a ward save, and then spending points on banners that are going to affect multiple aspects of my army or multiple models for the single price. Meteor Hammers, 50 points, AP -3, Magical attacks requires 2 hands. The strength is user, but it always wounds on a roll of 3+, regardless of the target's toughness. It's not strikes last, so 50 points, you 1 AP better than a great weapon. Most great weapons will be wounding on 2s against someone on foot, or 3s, 4s against someone on a dragon. So it is marginally better there. I wouldn't personally pay 50 points for it. Hellforged Axe, 30 points, is strength +1, AP -1, armor bane 3, flaming attacks, sadly, because this shapes up to be quite a nice weapon. But the flaming attacks to me kill it, because the benefits of flaming attacks are lower than the amount of positives, and that's because of the amount of ward saves in the game that are ward saves that are made better against flaming attacks, or only able to be taken against flaming attacks, particularly against characters. If a unit has flaming attacks, it's not too much of a downside, because it's only really Chaos Dwarves that have unit-wide ward saves against flaming attacks. When you become a character in a challenge, your enemy character is much more likely to have a 3-up ward against your flaming attacks. So I don't particularly like anything with flaming attacks. And that's from someone that has played Tzeentch quite a lot with those flaming attacks, both army-wide and characters. Sword of Sorrow, 30 points. The Sword of Sorrow is a sword of throwing, and it's range 30, strength 5, AP -1, armor bane 2, multiple wounds 2. It's a missile weapon, can't be used in combat, no ward or regen saves are permitted. It being one shot, I would have liked to see that armor bane 2 be taken off and made AP -2. It's okay. It's okay for 30 points. I think there are better things out there. If your army can benefit if you don't have any other access to magic weapons, magic bows, magic throwy things. It can be okay. I prefer, as I've said, keeping my characters cheap, putting them into banners. Having said that, shall we just go straight into banners, and then we'll come back to magic armor, because I keep mentioning liking banners. So we've got the Banner of Steadfast for 50 points, and it's infantry only. Should a unit carrying this banner be on the losing side of combat, you can't be double +1. You can fall back in good order, even if you're double +1. So it's going to benefit small elite units, things that you even want to hold quite a lot. It's not too much more expensive than the Stubborn banner. One thing, though, is that your elite small units are a lot of the time going to be damage dealers in themselves, doing a lot of wounds to other infantry. So, or if a unit, say like Bretonnian Peasants, I'm not too worried if I'm playing Swordmasters that I'm being double +1, because a lot of the time I'm going to win that combat anyway. I like it. I would much rather, though, put my points into something like the Totem of Wrath for 50 points. During a turn in which it charged, models within a unit carrying the Totem of Wrath improve armor piercing characteristic of weapons by 1 and reroll any wound rolls of a natural 1. So if you've got your elite infantry unit and you make your opponent for Vigo, you then count as charging in the following turn, so your armor piercing will be improved by 1. It's like Orc Choppers on steroids, and I think that's a lot of where this will go, as well as on cavalry, where re-rolling any wounds of 1, your lances, if you're into a soft opponent, very often wound on 2s. Re-rolling them 1s is really good. Going to armor piercing -3 as standard is really good. Being on, if it's lances and cavalry, you're likely to get that charge from the off. I think this is a really good magic item. It's benefiting full units. Again, as I said, I like benefiting full units. I think it's a real good contester for generic magic items to look at within your specific armies. Banner of the Swirling Wind, 30 points. Enemy model that shoots at a unit carrying the Banner of Swirling Wind suffers an additional -1 to hit modifier. We see this banner a few times across different units, or this effect a few times across different armies. I like playing a bit more. Right, it's really good. It's really good. He's -1 to hit. I just never find myself taking it. But there's so many players that have put it to really good use. Ignore my opinion on this particular banner and treat it as a real good one. If you want my opinion, saying ignore me, that is it. Monster Hunter's Tapestry, 25 points. Enemy units may not make stomp attacks against a unit carrying the Monster Hunter's Tapestry. It's too expensive for my liking. 25 points for a very situational banner. You take something 25 points worth of magic items that are going to help you all the time, would be my advice. Unless you've got a very specific unit that you're going to guarantee is getting into combat with monsters, with stomps. Magic armor, we've got the Levitating Shield for 25 points. It's infantry only. It's a shield that can be used with two-hand weapons. So it's getting that +1 armor value. You're not going to get a hand weapon shield bonus because it's not a two-hand weapon, isn't a hand weapon. But it can tip you into the 3-up save with great weapons being -2, lances being -2. You can very easily then get that 5-up, potential 5-up. Trailblazer's Hauberk, 20 points, infantry only. It's a suit of heavy armor, gains move through cover and scout. Decent, if that's what you want on your character. 35 points, Icon of Fortitude, infantry cavalry only, immune to multiple wounds, special rule. I'm sort of sick of seeing these. I hate them. I hate the ignore someone's paid for special effect and it's only very situationally useful. Yeah, whatever. Ironhide Talisman, 30 points. Models whose troop type is he's like the Dispel Scroll, right? The Icon of Fortitude is like a Dispel Scroll of, oh, you've cast this spell, you've put a lot of effort into casting this spell, it's only come off this once in the game because casting values are lower. Shut down for my 30-point magic item. And that's sort of the same. Sorry, that was just my little rant that I couldn't not have. Ironhide Talisman, 30 points. Models whose troop type is infantry only. Any enemy model that makes a successful to hit roll against the bearer of the Ironhide Talisman during the shooting phase or combat phase must reroll any to wound rolls of a natural 6. It doesn't work against attacks that hit automatically. If this was unit wide, I'd like it. Because it's only character wide, it's not, because the amount of incoming attacks onto a single character tend to be very low, especially because it's infantry only. If it was against a dragon, or for a dragon that requires 6s anyway, your toughness is quite low as an infantry model. The frequency of re-rolling those 6s, I don't think is worth 30 points unless you're desperate to keep that character alive, in which case this is negating other things like being able to take regeneration saves, things like that have a higher frequency, because it's a 5-up to just disregard the wound rather than re-rolling a 6 that then gets a chance to wound again. Right, next one. We've got enchanted items. The Arch Lightning Rod, single use. During a command phase, pass a leadership test. Until your next start of turn subphase, enemy units can't use fly. 40 points. Potion of Fervour, 30 points, single use. During the command phase of their turn, the bearer of the Potion of Fervour consume it. It gets D3 modifier to its attacks characteristic. 30 points. So that can be combined with the sword from before to get D6 plus D3 on a single turn and be a true Blender Lord, I would say. The Arc Lightning Rod, the reason I've skipped over it, I mean, we've seen that sort of be nerfed because it was too good. Luckily, this is single use. It's available to any army, but that is going to be everywhere for that key turn where someone wants to fly. Becalming Orb, 20 points. Single use. It's power level 1, a hex. Casting value 8, range self. Until the next start of turn subphase, enemy wizards that are within 15 of the caster when attempting to cast a spell must increase the spell's casting value by 2. It's going to be quite hard to cast because it's a power level 1. It's single use only for 20 points. And by which I mean its casting value is low, but if you're within 18 inches of an enemy, which you better be pushing forward because the range of this spell is effectively 15. It's a 15 bubble of making things harder. I think this is likely to get shut down by enemy wizards. And I think it's too easy to dispel. It's like the Dwarven rune of no casting, the Dwarven rune of calming. It never seems to come off as frequently as you'd like it. Arcane items, the Staff of Quietude, 35 points. Pass a leadership test to cancel all remains in play. It's okay. It's okay. Again, I like to actively do things with my magic item limit rather than taking away my opponents. Particularly in this case, from a power level wise, I like to be actively doing things, not just shutting down my opponents. This relies on my opponent to be taking remains in play stuff. And with the nerf to vortex spells, magical vortex spells, we're not seeing them as often. You still see them, obviously, but they're not as devastating as they previously were. So I'd prefer to be actively doing something. Scroll of Disruption, 30 points, once per turn. The bearer of the Scroll of Disruption may reroll a Dispel roll. It's good. It's good. It's once per turn, which is key for 30 points. Rerolling a Dispel roll, really good. I like it a lot. Tome of Spellcraft for 30 points. It's the opposite. Reroll a casting roll once per turn. Again, because it's doing something frequently, it's non-specific as to what I'm re-rolling, what spell I'm re-rolling. I really like how this has come out. So yeah, that is the end of the book. If you've made it this far, thank you very much. And if you want to support the channel, please do all the YouTubey things. It lets me know that you want to see these guides. I know I've done it impromptu, but I'm looking at doing them again in the new year, when family life has settled down a year after having a kid. If you really like it, there's a Patreon link below where you can get earlier access to videos, access to the Discord, members exclusive videos. I'll send dice to you. If you do it through YouTube memberships, send me your address through Instagram, because I can't message you. Patreon allows me to message you, but YouTube doesn't. So send me your address. I'll send you dice. And with that, we'll catch you in the next one. See you in a bit.